Okay, everybody. So it's been one of the most hotly contested and probably one of the most controversial decisions that I think any Labour government has actually made for a very, very long time. And it's specifically concerning the cuts to a lot of people on universal credit, specifically those who are classed as disabled. Or rather, for the rest of this video, I'm going to be using the phrase "require extra attention" because I honestly, well, let's get into that immediately right away. Is that there's been a lot of also speculation and a lot of things have been flown about what technically counts as a disability. Like, for example, can you say people who suffer from ADHD count as disabled? Or do people who are on the autism spectrum technically count as being disabled? And this is a discourse, and even people who have to rely on wheelchairs to get around, perhaps the rest of their lives, do they technically count as disabled? But do they tick the box in the sense that they can still work? When I was working at the job centre in Wallsend, I just so happened to know, guys, that I worked with somebody who I believe suffered from dwarfism, and she got around in a wheelchair, and she used to work actually at down in the job centre every so often. She would be mobile around several other job centres, and she could drive as well. I'm only making this known because guess what? She could do work nonetheless, and well, whether or not she just decided to just get on with it I think that's entirely up to her. I wouldn't mind actually seeing her again, just to. But would I honestly? It's one of those things where it runs the risk of trying to ask, because it's not my business to know, and I don't really want to be uncomfortable or anything like that, but. This whole discourse about cutting disability benefits, apparently it's apparently saved this country £5 billion, from what we're told. But unfortunately, what's sort of happened is that this has opened an enormous can of worms when it comes to, I would say, our attitude and how we treat people who require extra attention. To begin with, there's a video apparently on Talk TV, literally, and then here's just the title: "Send Them Home. Julia Hartley Brewers clash over 1 million foreign nationals on benefits." So, and bear in mind, whether you want to say Julia Hartley Brewers, this is just good old fashioned racism, or whether or not it's just. Whether or not maybe we're going to start getting to the stage now where we're not even going to consider stuff like this as being racist. Maybe they'll be just saying this is just one woman voicing her opinion that millions of other people are voicing at the exact same moment. But does that make it right, or does that make it wrong? You tell me. I don't necessarily, So I'll get to that, because again the discourse about also people who can work and people who are on benefits out of choice, and also people who are absolutely chomping at the bit to get back into work, and like me, for example, and who are running up against every single barrier, every single setback, and everything is just, it's going so wow, it undermines sort of problems that people are accustomed to have. For example, there was another video on Talk TV, "Out of Touch with Reality, Keir Starmer slammed over Extreme Report." And you know who's doing this, covering the story? Jeremy Kyle. That's right, guys. The same Jeremy Kyle who drove a man to end his own life, resulting in the end of his own talk show. And Jeremy Kyle, well, to be honest, he's a nasty piece of work anyway. So what Jeremy Kyle has got round to start saying people are delusional or not, at this point, just like with Ellen DeGeneres, it's confirming what we already know, so there's no point in pretending to care that there was anything to hide at this point. the Jeremy Kyle show was the biggest mistake I think ITV have ever made. Probably worse than Love Island or something like that. But let's put that to side for 1 second. Is that what I said before? Is that this entire discourse, it completely undermines something even more radical and even more extreme. Is that when you think about it, and I mean, here, I'm going to close out this video by saying this. You know what honestly is a bit more telling? It's not the fact that this is going on, although why this is going on, and there's no change in the circumstances of try and raise the taxes of those who earn over £200,000 a year. Why there is no, they don't tax the rich is a very good question, and there's loads of other things that I'm sure they could have done, but whether or not this is just because this saves more money in the fastest way possible by inconveniencing because listen, the only way any of this would have been seen as a good idea if they literally were planning on getting millions of people who require extra attention into work at the same time instantaneously. Unfortunately, there are a few problems with this, because in the first place, employers will still need to employ people who can actually do the job. They're not just going to employ people just because they've been told to, just to fill up a void. Although, to be honest, some store owners and some supermarket chains, they've got more than enough money to be able to take on more people so that, everybody does good in the long run. But you know what I'm trying to say. But if that's not going to happen, then what do they expect them to do? And as I said before, what about the millions of people who are require extra attention, and who are absolutely more than equal to do the work, and who have openly been applying for jobs left, right, and centre, but nobody actually wants to take them on? It's not their fault. What do you expect them to? What do you expect out of stuff like that? I mean, are we going to go through the? Are we going to say, unless you are terminally ill, then you're more than fine to do something? And there we are. It seems kind of, it's this sort of thing that makes me feel incredibly conflicted about not necessarily staying with Labour, but also wondering, was there any other way we could have saved £5 billion? I mean, £5 billion is a lot of money, but are you really trying to tell me that this was the only option we had open? Was there nothing else we could have done, or nothing we could have done at this this quickly? Which again, from maybe the point of view of the Labour Party, this is the only thing that would have saved more money with the least amount of effort. I really couldn't tell you, but let me just say, there is one more thing I want to say before we finish, and it's this. What do you suppose would happen, guys? Because listen, if they want to portray the idea, GB News, Talk TV, British Stand, etc., etc., if they want to portray the idea that the Labour Party is now literally gone completely insane and extreme, then here's honestly what they could have done. And I do mean this. It says a lot about the other political institutions that they are not actually wanting to do anything for those who require extra attention, or those who are of British nationals who actually, who are incredibly engrossed in debt, and it will continue that way because, well, what do the other parties want to do about this? And that's the thing you have to consider, guys, is that, do you suppose the Conservatives are not exactly going to, like, for any other political party, if I was in charge of the Conservatives at this moment in time, you know what I would have done? Said, Christmas has come early, therefore let us all be Father Christmas, and actually do something for those who are out of work, do something for those who who could be saying they were being attacked by Labour, by saying that if you don't get out and look for work, we are going to slash your benefits even further. But of course, they are not going to do stuff like that. The Lib Dems won't do anything like that. Plaid Cymru aren't going to do anything like that. The SNP won't do anything like that. Reform absolutely will not do anything like that. Because I know what you're going to be saying, that they're all political institutions and organisations. They're not charities. And that's certainly true. And it's not Christmas either. And there's no charity to any of this whatsoever. But in what extreme cases? I mean, that might also come down to what this government's interpretation of disabled truly is. And something that is obviously going to cause an awful lot of controversy. And, well, it would be interesting to see exactly what happens from this. But all I can say for the moment right now is, well, you know what? I will still continue to look for work. There's been no doubt whatsoever that people know fine well that I'm not in any way just going to give up just because people told me they're going to make it harder for me like that. You know what? If they were serious about this, then they would have honestly have sat down, they would have gone through the books, they would have looked into certain people, they would have looked about what they can do, what they can't do, what they said they wanted to do, what they wouldn't want to do. They would have just done all of this. And besides, whilst all this is going on, this is apparently, again, the discourse does not seem to be about actually helping the poor. It seems more to be about attacking anyone else. Because there's even a thing that's come out, the new culture reform it's called. The title is the left hate that an Englishman is the world's greatest writer. Which I suppose you may want to ask, if you think things are like this now with Labour, well, do you really think the alternative is going to be any better? Are you really trying to tell me that the Conservative... Are you really trying to tell me Kemi Badenoch would not cut people who are required extra attention as well? Are you really trying to tell me that's what would have happened? Are you really trying to tell me that, well, this is this would have been going on if Sunak was still the Prime Minister? I'm not a fan of what Labour are doing, by the way. I'm not a fan with this perception. I'm not a fan of this one bit. But what exactly does come of this? And if you're really trying to tell me that we're going to be perfectly fine with the alternative, well, we'll wait and see. And if you're really trying to tell me you're only now interested as just using the... I think the sort of people will only ever be interested is because they can use this as a stick to beat up Labour with, not because it's done in the interest of those who can't defend themselves. Because that's what it is. It's people who can't defend themselves who are under the cosh. So, food for thought, eh?